Hello, dear viewers. My name is Abhilash, and thanks for being here. Today's guest for this session does not require an introduction, but I'll still go ahead and give one. Kunal Shah is a serial entrepreneur, innovator, and investor. Kunal's first venture, FreeCharge, was one of the earlier fintech companies in the country. They pioneered the digital payments in India and got one of the biggest exits of that time in 2015. His current venture, CRED, is a platform that provides the benefit of high trust communities to credit-worthy individuals, brands, and financial institutions. Of course, we've all seen the wonderful ads of CRED. Kunal is an ardent believer in a few things. Like, for example, the role of financial well-being in catalyzing progress and change, both for the individual as well as for larger societies. He believes that financial literacy and female participation in the workforce is one of the very key ingredients any nation should have for its progress. Kunal is also someone who reads a lot. He likes to think about human behavior and psychology, and a lot of his businesses and things within his business were built with these things in mind. I'm so looking forward to this conversation. Kunal, welcome, and thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me.
Kunal, without further ado, let's dig right in. Today, we'll broadly be speaking about a few topics, right? Financial services, the current Indian ecosystem, women entering the workforce, female participation in the workforce, financial literacy, mental models, and so on. So why don't I start with this? In the last 2 years or so, there's been some very interesting things going on in the Indian financial services space, right? For example, in the last 18 months, more than 2 crore demat accounts got opened, and that's taken the number to close to 7 crores overall. 7 crore demat accounts opened overall. What do you think is happening here? Has the risk-taking ability of the Indian middle class suddenly gone up? What is your take on what's going on here?
My answer may not be the regular view, but I think what ends up happening is when any kind of crisis ends up happening and you are forced to kind of think and do some action, you feel your brain and amygdala feels that you need to do something and I need to come out of the situation. You can't really fight the virus. So what you do is you kind of do some activity in life and say that I'm going to be slightly more long-term and try to move my assets in a certain way. Also, when the markets kind of go into this full recovery mode that, oh, we have survived a pandemic, there is this euphoria where we feel that we have conquered everything, right? And the risk-taking appetite, when the amygdala of our brain is in a flight or fight mode, it just goes for a massive thing. And if you look at 1918, when the previous pandemic hit, and the subsequent 2 years, a similar behavior was observed, which was called the Roaring Twenties or whatever it is, that where the consumption took off. This Diwali is going to be the biggest consumption that we've ever seen in the country, and there is this belief that we've conquered everything, and there is going to be this behavior. But subsequently, after Roaring Twenties was the largest crash that was observed. So I think we are going to see a massive correction as well. We just don't know when the correction is likely to happen. Nobody's here to predict that. But the point is that every crisis results in a euphoric behavior where people feel that they need to do something, act something, put all their money. And think about it this way. Let's say when you are playing poker, right? Usually, let's say the person with the smallest stack, right, feels the need to be most aggressive, because they feel they're going to be taken off the table anyways. So they keep going all in. They keep going all in, right? And that's unfortunately the scary part of what is happening, right? And forget about where the assets and what investment. Everybody thinks that they can listen to an influencer and invest. Everybody thinks that they have figured out the market. Everybody thinks that they're expert of cryptos as well. And suddenly you see that behavior where the small stack kind of a consumer is kind of going all in and saying that YOLO.
I got that. The interesting thing, Kunal, is this crisis seems to be one of the best things that could have happened to the Indian fintech ecosystem, right? A lot of things have changed, and this whole sudden adoption, a lot of things have come together at the same time as well. The payments ecosystem, the UPI, all of these things are in place, and this particular movement that we've seen in the last 18 months or so has transcended all sorts of barriers, geographic barriers. We are seeing that the participation is from all corners of the country. Age barriers, for example, my father, who is close to 70 years old, he's never used an app in his life, is comfortable using his internet banking application. Earlier, he used to go to the bank or send someone to the bank to kind of get things done. That was not possible. Now, suddenly he doesn't feel the need to go to the bank anymore. A lot of things have changed, and it feels almost like things are changing on a daily basis, right? But from your view, if you look at how things are changing, what is the financial services space going to look like 20 years from now?
I don't even know if money as it exists today will remain in 20 years from now. So very hard to predict any of those things. I think there are 3-4 things to think about. First of all, the largest employer of the world is inefficiency. And as the world becomes more efficient, the number of people required reduces dramatically. And we are absolutely not anticipating this super efficient world. How is that going to impact a large chunk of people, and how are they going to behave? That's number one. Number two, in moment of crisis, if you do not know how to use an app and order grocery and order food, you have to force yourself to learn, right? And you kind of got a reset in human behavior across the world where a step function change or adoption happened. And every crisis accelerates future a little bit. If you notice that a lot of people got married really fast and got divorced really fast and so on and so forth, because crisis makes you say that the life is short and you need to act on your decisions now, right? And there is no more delay in using internet banking. Let me just use it right away, right? The third thing is the per capita income of the country has gone down. I think few hundred million people are predicted to have gone below the poverty line again. And I think while at the surface level, things may look good in the circle that we operate, we are all 1% of India. The reality is the breadth of India and the amount of distress that people are feeling across the rest of the India is immense and massive. And I don't think we truly really understand what's going on. I think the India one is completely unaware about the challenges and problems the rest of the country is facing. And the other thing is, while we are building all of this technology, one can hope that we can do more things, but I would love to see, let's say, export revenue take off or manufacturing take off, because wealth creation will only happen when we have foreign capital, not just as investment coming in, but as consumption coming in to the country as well. As of now, my belief is that at least let's say Google Pays and Phone Pays and WhatsApp payments and all of these are going to accelerate internal commerce and get more consumption going. But the reality is, if people do not have money, you cannot expect more transaction and more consumption to happen, right? The scary part is, we briefly touched upon it, is female participation of labor, right? Systematically, more and more women have left the workforce, and during COVID, it got even more accelerated because they had to take care of kids and work, and trying to work from home. It was just not possible, and many women have left the workforce. Less than 6% of urban female population now is having independent financial income, which is declining fast. If you compare that to Bangladesh, right? More than 68 to 70% of urban Bangladeshi women are currently working out, have their own financial income, right? And therefore, you see these two countries per capita income are going in very interesting directions. Bangladesh was way behind of us, and we used to always think that, oh, Bangladeshis are all coming to us nation because we are more prosperous. In 6 years, they have crossed us on per capita income, and more growth is likely to be coming over there, just because all the genders are participating in the workforce with equal rigor. So many macroeconomic factors lost in this euphoria that we are currently living on the bull market. The market will correct itself and reality will sink in very, very soon.
Yeah, I mean, Kunal, the female participation in the workforce, I know, is a very, very a topic that is close to your heart. You keep talking about this. One of the things that is happening is because of COVID, things suddenly became digital, right? And let's talk about urban women. Now, suddenly it seems like, at least at the surface level, it seems like there probably is a lot more opportunity than before to do things digitally, right? My first question is, do you think that is going to have an incremental impact on female participation in the workforce? What would you say to that?
I thought it would. When the pandemic hit and lockdowns, I actually tweeted about it that I think there's a biggest opportunity for women to come back to the labor force because you can work from home now. But what I did not realize and appreciate enough is that there has to be support from the house, be it from the spouses or from the parents or everybody who's expecting more from them, to actually help them or create the ambition of being independent. What ended up happening, it actually accelerated in the opposite direction because they became a full-time support to the system, right? Versus kind of going and using their education qualification or whatever to kind of take jobs outside. So I think India is fairly complex and complicated about this topic. I have tried to address it in many forums, and I honestly have no real answer on what can change. But I think there's a big cultural change that needs to happen. More people need to talk about it. More people need to care about it. We cannot expect the country to have a $5 trillion economy with just such a low female participation of labor. 93% of all credit cards are owned by men. 95% of all loans are taken by men in India. We cannot expect to become a superpower or a very, very prosperous country with just one gender participating and trying to make things happen. No country has managed to cross more than $3,000 per capita income with such low female participation of labor. India is going to have the same challenge. I think the only country that managed to do that is some Arab nations, which largely was fueled by oil and not so much from the pure labor force participation.
But is it only is part of the problem also the lack of the right kind of employment opportunities?
No. I disagree with that. I think we think that there are not enough jobs, but let me put it this way. If a person who's educated, let's say as an engineer, MBA, lawyer, and currently doing a lot of work that is suited for lower skill, is that the right thing, right? For example, most educated people in the country should be able to work in a customer support function or a BPO, or whatever that means to be able to do remote work. The question is that happening? Or are people just kind of taking a full-time house responsibilities, right? And changing that. So it's a very complicated topic. I wish I could provide more nuance to that, but I think we completely misunderstand what capitalism means. I'll give you a fun story. The word spinsters comes from capitalism. These were women in villages who were trained to spin cotton to earn financial income, and that's how the word spinsters was born.
Right. How interesting. So, Kunal, moving to a slightly different topic, and I completely agree that female participation in workforce is something that needs to be discussed more and more. I don't, till the time you started speaking about it, I did not know that the female participation in workforce in India is declining, right? I would have imagined or thought that it is, the economy.
It's very easy to guess this. Abhilash, let me ask you a question. Imagine all the people who were in your college batch, all the women.
Right.
Has the percentage of them working in the workforce gone up, gone down? Let's go 2 levels down. Let's say your young cousins. Have they participated more in the workforce? I think, or airport, right? Right. How many queues for women versus men? Has that changed? And why do we still have separate queues for women and men? Why do we have separate compartments for women and men? How many compartments for women at railway station or a metro station trail versus men? There are so many questions that will give you enough answers, which tells you that it's on a decline.
Yeah, I mean, very interesting. I think this is one topic that requires a lot more conversation. And thanks so much for bringing this up, Kunal. Moving to a slightly different topic, right? One of the things that you tweeted some time back is there is no shortcut to wealth or health, right? I know it's kind of a broad question, but let's say if a 20 someone who's just getting into a workforce is to come and ask you or looking for general advice or general, you have so much experience, tell me some things that I should do or not do, right? What would that be? Do you have like a framework or a formula for this, or how do you think about that?
I think, first of all, most people assume that just because they are good at algebra, they are good at money. And that is one big notion that we need to kill. Second is because we are a status-driven society, it is not okay to talk about money. People do not talk about their financial weaknesses, almost like sexual health, right? They will not talk about if they're facing an issue because it's considered to be a matter of shame, right? And therefore, friends don't openly discuss about money and compound interest and loans and hidden loans that they have taken and what interest are they paying and so on and so forth. The third thing is just understanding of compound interest. Most people can't process it, right? We were shocked that majority of our customers who are on CRED, which is affluent segment, thought that interest rate on their credit card was less than 15%.
Oh.
Now, imagine the scary part of it. If your APR is now at 40%, and let's say you miss for 2-3 months, and therefore during the pandemic, when there's a moratorium for loans, we announced to all our members that do not opt for moratorium because the interest is not going to stop. You will not get negatively marked in the bureau, right? And we screamed about it because this is the basic understanding that most people don't seem to have, right? Other things are about just understanding how inflation works. Most people do not realize that the urban inflation probably is in the 7-8%. They just have no clue about that. And if you keep money in your bank account at earning 2.5%, every year you have less money. And I think what happened is that we were all from lower middle class families and told that all you have to do is save money. So we saved money. And saving money at income that earns lower than inflation, that's not saving money, that's destroying wealth, right? So I think basic concepts are not there. I think I wish, and we are wondering as CRED, how do we participate in this, that if financial literacy became an important topic to be taught in school, to explain in college, then it doesn't matter where you invest and what you do with the money. The question is that, do you understand what's happening to your money? Do you realize that 1 lakh rupees kept in your account over 10 years means nothing, right? You probably destroyed most of its wealth, although it seems like the same amount. I think all of us would behave differently if all of us had, let's say, let's put it this way, I'm going to give an example. Let's say I have, let's say, a 100 rupees note over here, right? And imagine this is a digital note. And every year, what if this became 94, 86?
Yeah, very interesting idea.
80, right? Unfortunately, it says 100. So I don't know. And people keep talking about petrol pricing going up and all of that. They don't realize that the pani puri inflation is much more than petrol.
The pani puri inflation.
The question is that, do you understand that what is the multiple X on pani puri versus petrol? And you keep crying about petrol and not realize that it's largely controlled and it should be priced a lot more if you were multiplying at the same inflation rate as pani puri.
Right. No, very interesting, Kunal. So the financial literacy piece that you're talking about, right? We all know that in India, financial literacy is in schools and colleges is almost non-existent, right? It's abysmal. But as they say, charity starts at home. And most of our viewers are people like us, millennials, middle class. They've not been taught about money. They've not spoken money at home. As a result, even today, a lot of people don't know what it means to compound your money. Like you said, what is inflation? How is it destroying my wealth if I don't invest it in the right avenues? Coming back, charity starts at home. A lot of them have kids or are planning to have kids, right? What do you think should be done? What should the kids be taught? Like, have you thought about what could be done at home to make this problem less severe?
I don't know if parents know enough to teach the kids. So I would say the first step would be learn something from YouTube and start teaching your kids. That's the fastest way that I can assure that you will know it, forget about your kids knowing it or not. And I think make money an important topic of discussion on dining table.
Dinner table conversations.
If you cannot talk about that, right? And if it's a hush topic, right? They will learn to suffer quietly and not realize if they're making good decisions. And other thing is learn to question everything. Is investing in real estate a good idea?
Yeah.
Why should I rent a house? Why should I buy a house? Why should I take Ola, or should I rent a car, or should I buy a car? The question is that most of these things are not understood because most people who are somewhat good at finance love it so much. Their ability to explain to most people is so complicated that I almost feel it's a classist system. My view is we have a new caste system that has come to the world. People who are financially literate and people who are not. And that caste system is going to cause way more damage than any caste system that we've had in the past.
I completely agree. And in fact, we see that on a daily basis, right? There are people who know how this works, but they struggle to explain this to someone who does not, right? And these are people who've gone to Ivy Leagues, the best of best places, been in the financial services space. Yeah, I mean, it's a very real problem. And you kind of spoke about something very interesting there, right? Learn something from YouTube and teach it to your kids. It's a nice segue to one of the other things that I wanted to talk about. Influencers who are talking about money, right? Influencers who are talking about finances. In the last 2 years, especially, it almost seems like they've exploded out of nowhere, right? These same YouTubers had a number of followers in the hundreds of thousands. Now they are having followers in the millions, right? And this is really shaping and impacting the perception of the Indian consumer, the Indian investor. How do you look at this whole space evolve? And the government has stepped in, the regulatory authorities have stepped in and put in some guardrails to ensure that the consumers know, etc. But how do you look at this whole space?
You're only likely to get influenced when you choose to not learn on your own and know the facts on your own, right? There was a time in ancient India where a lot of people who kind of became the fake priests and made you do lots of pujas because you did not understand how religion worked, and it became complex, right? Every time any system is complex, you will see different versions of priests emerge, right? And you can keep putting curbs on what the priests can and can't do. The question is that, do the believers understand what the religion is, right? And I think the issue is we can stop. How much can we stop? Can we tell the YouTubers to not talk about money? Can we take the microphone away from them? Can we really stop them? What if the influencers now start talking from abroad and influencing people in India? Can we really stop that? The question is, what we need to do is train people to be proof of that. For example, if an influencer is seen jumping from a building, not people are going to do that over here because they have a sense on taking care of themselves. On matters of money, nobody knows what is jumping from a building and what is not jumping from a building, right? So, and nobody knows, YouTubers don't make their demat accounts public to tell people what are they really doing, for people to know that, and is that legally allowed to kind of influence these things. So I think we are in a world where the word influence is dangerous as long as you are easy to influence. You can't keep preventing influencers. We just have to build a better muscle for our own resistance against them. We need to have our own vaccine against influencers.
Absolutely. I think, for the record, I think influencers in general, right, as a larger category, are doing a phenomenal job in educating the public.
I think that's a very important point to talk about. Influencers are doing a fantastic job in telling you why is this important and how to go about it. The moment it goes in the territory of what should you exactly do and where should you invest, without the right qualifications to make those recommendations, that's where the dangerous territory begins. So the question is that, why should I invest? How should I invest? Absolutely great job. Where should I invest? And what should I be picking? All of these are dangerous territories. So that's where the nuance has to be brought in.
Absolutely. Kunal, I want to talk about a slightly different topic. This is something that you've spoken about in multiple videos of yours. You've asked other people about this, but mental models, right? You are someone who's had a very eventful life, right? You've gone through a lot of financial struggles early in life. You've seen poverty. You've started multiple businesses, right? If I'm not wrong, about 15, 16 businesses you've started. Many of them successful, some of them failed startups. The learnings that come through all of this is immense, right? And you are someone who likes to think about frameworks, decision frameworks, mental models. What are 2 or 3 of decision frameworks and mental models that have served you well, and that you think would serve the larger audience very well? And before that, if you could briefly talk about what are mental models, right?
I wish I had thought about this question a little bit more. I've never thought about it to articulate my mental models, but I think mental models are nothing but systems that you can rely on to make decisions, good decisions consistently, right? Which allows you to take an ambiguous situation and make it easy to decide things. And I don't think I'm very competent to talk about models in the articulation. There are enough books on mental models and which have come and which are quite good. I think the easier mental model to think about is being around people who are very good at most decisions in life.
Okay.
And just observing how they take decisions.
Okay.
And by design, they are fewer people, right? Sometimes you do not know if it's an innate ability or they're just very good at reflecting and introspecting on their previous deep mistakes and avoid those mistakes. I think just being around them physically or reading their content, watching their content, right? For example, if you watch every video of Jeff Bezos, it's absolute gold in terms of insights per minute, right?
Absolutely.
And the reason it is the case because the person has consistently done things and been more right. And anything that you study about their way of running business or how he runs his business and how he takes decisions, you'll learn. You may not be able to hang around with Jeff Bezos because that person is not accessible, but the content and how they think and how they do things is quite accessible and you can learn from that. That's one. The second one is about basically thinking about value of time, right? if you decide some way, what is the value of 1 hour of your time? And there are very different ways of doing that. You can divide your salary by the number of hours you work, or you can take your net worth and divide it by some DCF or future net worth and divide it that. Let's say we come up to a number which says that, hey, the value of your 1 hour of your time is 50,000 rupees per hour. Now, one has to ask, do they do work that earns or creates more value than 50,000 per hour or less? Let's take an example of two things. I spent half an hour to get 500 rupees discount on a flight ticket. Or I read a book for 1 hour, which is likely to create more value and which is likely to create less value. We forget that we are also assets and products.
Reading the book, of course.
Correct. And I think that's the one thing. And I think most people don't understand this, because value of time as a concept is not taught to us. If I ask most people in India, what is your salary per hour? They have no clue. Because all of us were paid monthly salary. In the US, everybody started their salary on an hourly basis and then kept growing. And therefore, the unit of time in their head is still hourly.
Right.
For Indians, it's once a month. And therefore, we can all answer once a month, what is our salary? If I asked you what's your per hour salary, you have no clue, and then you don't know. And therefore, if you see most Indians, they spend most of their time on the flight deleting pictures from their WhatsApp to save space versus reading. And this is flights. This is the most affluent cohort. And we wonder why we are not growing and becoming more prosperous. And the other thing I would say is that one framework that really works is called decision journaling. If you start writing all your decisions and go back and say if you were good and bad at that decision, let's say you hired somebody, how did it turn out? You made an investment, how did it turn out? What was your thinking behind it? And if you can maintain a journal of all your decisions and go back to it over a 1 year period of time, and it doesn't matter what decisions they are, automatically you'll become much better in life with your decisions.
Great. So the first part that you spoke about here, following people who are good at making decisions, right? On top of your head, who should be like the top 3 or 5 people that you follow, for example, that others could also, like they could look up their videos, they could buy their books and read. Are there any recommendations there?
I fundamentally don't believe in limiting the number of people. I follow a lot of people and I learn from everybody.
Yeah.
I would highly discourage the idea of having favorites. Favorites is the fastest way of becoming dumb in life, because you automatically limit your brain's capacity to absorb and see more. So anybody who says what is your top book and what is your top author and what is your top founder that you like, I would say I hate the word favorite. Favorite is the fastest way to become a fanatic, and a fanatic over a period of time just becomes dumb.
Got that. So that brings to mind an interesting thing that Naval Ravikant once said, right? When you're reading books, right, don't go after the latest chart topper, but go after, read the 100 top books of all time and read them and reread them again and again. Do you agree with that? Is that something that you do?
I would say read first. As a country, we are absolutely not into reading or absorbing knowledge, unfortunately. So forget about getting 100 or things, just get into the habit of reading and reflecting. And unless that happens, life is going to get insanely hard and difficult.
Great. Kunal, we are coming towards the end of our conversation. The last question is this. What is the 2 of the most important pieces of advice that you've received in life? It could be about money or anything else that has changed your life at that time, but probably times have changed, you've grown, they don't hold true anymore. Is there anything like that?
I think one advice has been that don't be proud of your achievements of the past, but be anxious about what you can do in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one is to realize that as much as we think that we control things and control time, we really don't control anything. And our job is to do our best while we are here, and make sure that we create the highest positive impact to more humans around us as much as possible, versus being this self-centered person that will make you just empty, uh, uh, and empty and wealthy.
Yeah, absolutely. The first one still holds true, or
Absolutely. I have zero. I have zero fear of becoming zero in life. It almost excites me because it will allow me to craft a completely new world, and build, versus be proud. I have got many awards in life. I've got none of them home ever. I don't believe in having any badges, because all badges are prisons that people offer you to stay in.
absolutely. Can you elaborate that a little bit? All badges are prisons that people offer you to stay in.
If I told you that you are an extraordinary interviewer, imagine you carry that badge for your life and you not really truly understand if you what if you are much more than that.
Mm-hmm. Becomes your part of your identity, and you start.
Exactly. And identities are prisons that we create for ourselves, like resumes are prisons. What if you were designed for something much bigger?
Yeah, absolutely. Kunal, this has been a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for your time. This is the GoPassive Conclave. Our only goal is to educate investors and users and people in general about investing and passive investing in particular. Do you have any parting comments for our audience?
Get curious. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much for your time, Kunal. It was wonderful.
Take care. Thank you.